Basketball fans, welcome back. So, this week, the Kenya Basketball Federation released the Kenya Lioness and Kenya Morans provisional lists because this February they're going to be playing. And in this video, I'll be sampling a couple of comments, also my comments included on what I feel about the team selections, the coaching staff, the strategies that they've been employing year in, year out, and just give a reaction and honest take on it because a lot of people had a lot of things to say, especially when it came to some players being cut out of the team. Notably, in this video, I'm going to be mentioning Betty Kananu, and I'm going to also explain away like some of the comments that I've seen, and also just give a reaction on that so that you can be able to reflect the reason as to why the Kenya Basketball Federation officials choose to be very mediocre, especially when it comes to national team selection. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. So, there's this graphic I made, and I've been using it in most of my videos, especially when I'm talking about Coach Cliff. And I made this so that people can understand why Coach Cliff is not the right man for the job. And through the years, we have seen a trend that the KBF officials use, especially when it comes to selecting the national teams. So the coaches and the team managers have literally no power, especially when it comes to selecting the national teams, and they don't even have a say when it comes to even the final roster, because the people who are at the helm, who are the officials, they are the ones who decide who is going to go out there, and so that you know that your name is literally on the final sheet, on the final sheet of the list, of the team sheet. You will only know that you're on the team when your boarding pass is printed with your name. That's the only way you know, because it's a 12-man roster and they have 23 people in camp. So a lot of people are gonna get cut, and even some people will not even pick up or even honor the call to the national team. So yeah, so even I mentioned this is the person who will coach the Kenya Morans. Uh, this man lost the plot completely years ago. So as you can see, in 14 games, he only had 4-10. And you can see the L's are too many than the wins. So this man, if you do quick maths, he averages 1 win per year. So that's how poor he is. And given the large sample size of games, you will see that this guy is not the right man for the job, and he has never been. And I've mentioned this in so many videos talking about this guy, and I've documented that he is not the guy who can be able to take us to that Afrobasket this year. And this year, things are going to be very tough because a lot of teams are going to be colliding. We're going to be having about 10 games per day for the 3 games. So that's about like 30 games in 3 days. And a lot of teams are gearing up towards qualifying. So if you are not able to have a good point differential, even if you have a winning record, you're going to get knocked out. So there's that. And man, it's just been sad. So even I mentioned, this is me who was talking. It's only in Kenyan basketball where failure and mediocrity is glorified. So this one goes without any explanation. So Coach Cliff has 4 wins in 4 years as the Kenya Morans head coach, and you'll still find people defending him and state that he's the right man for the job. So you're going to find people who will still ride with this coach despite the failures and flaws. And it's their opinion, it's their right. But one thing that they have to understand, the reality is the man is a failure, and he's not going to be able to achieve anything in Kenyan basketball. And there's a reason as to why he got cut from the coaching staff of APR, because APR looked at him and said, you know what, we want somebody who can be able to do something for us. We don't want somebody who's going to joke around and not deliver, especially when it comes to wins. In national team assignments, every win counts, and how you look on the basketball court in the game really reflects on what you have been doing in training camp and your philosophy. And this man has no philosophy, has no identity, and he literally has no strategy when it comes to Kenya Morans basketball. And that's the reason as to why this take is here. So even I mentioned this in a video I made. The Kenya Lioness team has never played together in 2 years. The last time we saw them active was in the Afrobasket qualifiers in February 2023. That's a whole 2 years. It's 2025, and they're slated to play in 2nd February to 8th in Cairo, Egypt. So they only have 2 weeks to prepare. I'm not going to count the last week because that's the time they're going to be looking at logistics. And I saw a video that was making its rounds, like they have started training. And let me tell you, they are going to get brutalized because they're going to match up against teams that have been active. Teams that have been active, especially last year. And you're going to see a lot of incompetence going in there. So, especially comes to the national team. Yeah, so we have our good friend here, Wekesa. Thought this year will be a smooth sailing. What is the rationale of having Ancent over Bena in the assistant national team coach? How is Ojoko not in the coaching staff? How is Brad not in the coaching staff? I don't know I don't know much about Robert Mugabe, so I'm assuming he's the defensive coach. If he's not, then how do you play defense? So Robert Mugabe, he was brought in as the new coach, and honestly, I really struggle to understand why these people do this. Sometimes I feel like the national team, they fail. They just fail because of just blatant ignorance. And let me just show you. Even the Kenya Morans came out with a statement saying who this man is. So welcome to the Kenya Morans, Robert Mugabe Oyugi. Your experience in coaching Team Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi will be invaluable and will help the Morans achieving their basket goals. Coach Mugabe currently coaches EABCC champions Remesha BBC in Burundi. He previously coached Tigers BBC and Rwanda and Dynamo in Burundi. In Kenya, he was in the technical bench for the former champions Core Bank Spartans. You can see they are just putting out his resume. So the thing is this, right? There are so many other options that Team Kenya could have gone with. Don't know why Coach Brad Davis is not there, despite having the most amount of players from a single team. Coach Brad Davis, his Thunder squad, 10 of the players in the national team are in the Thunder squad. And you're seeing that he's not even there. So how do you give away your players to another coach who you already beat in the finals? So yeah, I don't know much about this guy, but hey man, I mean it's it's interesting. It's interesting. So yeah, you can see we are going to fail again, but none of is ready for this conversation. Let me just put it there. Everyone knows where the problem is, but we choose to ignore every year. So people are just waking up slowly to the reality that this team is run by very incompetent people, and they can't hide from this. This is something they can't hide from. I've always said this is our downfall. Cliff is not the right coach for the Morans. His stats are horrible. Some of the players have been in better programs. To give them Cliff is just pulling them down. True. I mean, Coach Cliff, tena kwani hakuna any other head coach who can lead this team to better results. Yeah, there are actually other coaches. We had Coach Liz Mills. In 2 years, he had a 2-5 record in 7 games. So, and they removed her from the team because she wanted a rebuild, and they decided to bring back Coach Cliff, somebody they already fired. So, yeah, I mean, it's pure incompetence. I can't stress this enough. I mean, it's just it's a blatant disregard and just disrespecting Kenya. And the sad part is that the federation hears these same complaints every year, and they're like, "F it, we cool with losing every year. This guy is so trash. He couldn't coach a team to win the street league. How TF do you all expect him to win international competitions?" Yeah, true. The man still uses the silver medal he won in 2019 to make a case for himself, but that's 2019. In 2023, he was presented the same opportunity in the AfroChan, but he finished 6th. So that means you are going to go back and play the AfroChan qualifiers now. You can't even go directly to the AfroChan. So this is how poor this man is. The man lost the plot completely. Now, so this is a very contentious issue, and I just want to talk about it. So Betty Kananu has been making waves, especially in KBF. Okay, her continental showdowns, especially when it comes to the Equity Hawks, some of them are very abysmal, and I can't put her as one of the best players like that when it comes to playing against teams that are better or at the same level. But in KBF, she has been hooping, and I can attribute this to the fact that the women's division is very weak, and there are only 2 or 3 teams that take the women's division seriously. That's KP, Equity, and the ZTX Sparks, if I can put them there. So she's actually quite solid. And the reason as to why she's not in the roster, and the reason as to why she gets snubbed every single year, the Team Lioness is there, is because of that viral video that was made in 2019 when the Kenya Lioness team at the time called out KBF for not facilitating them adequately. So reports came out that some of the players went ahead and asked for forgiveness for making that video. Betty Kanan was not part of the people who said that, who went ahead and apologized. But funny enough, you're going to see even players who were there making the video are still playing for the national team. So it begs the question: uh, do are these situations, or is that situation valid to ban her right now, because she is actually one of our best? If you put her performances in KBF alongside all the other players, you'll see that she is actually one of our best, and she was part of the team that won the championship this year. So why not put her in? And in this video, we're going to look at some of the comments there that we're referencing the same. So Ronnie Owino, he came out and said, I believe Betty Cannon was the MVP in 2023 with her Equity Hawks team as champions. To drop Betty from the national team from 2019 due to some far-fetched accusations is indeed petty. 5 years later, KBF is still chest thumping and not picking the best for the national team. Betty is a scorer. KBF should not let pride and vanity affect the selection. This is wrong in so many ways. Yeah, similar. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, man, because you can't let like things that happened years ago be a cause to which you just want to cancel a player and just punish them, and they are standing on what they believed in. It takes another level of courage to go ahead and call out the system and say that you don't want this. But using that as a way to like shut them out because they are speaking their mind is unfair. 5 years later, assuming for a minute Jesus Christ, assuming for a minute that Betty erred, why can't KBF forgive and grant a second chance? I mean, so petty to say the least. Why can't coaches from the national team, Lioness, demand the inclusion of Betty Kananu? Only they don't think she deserves to be on the team. Spineless. So there's and I want to add a few things, especially on this when I saw this comment. So majority of the time you'll see players in KBF are very spineless and they don't have any unity. Because when you see your friend being selected in the national team and you play on the same team but she's selected in front of you, and you ask, why are you selecting her and I am actually better? Why are you selecting this player and I'm actually better than this player? When you ask that, they take exception and take offense to that, and they try to treat you unfairly. So players are very spineless and they're always looking out for themselves. And this individualistic mental mentality that these players have, especially when it comes to Kenyan players who are so desperate to play outside, and they use any opportunity they can get. If they can get it through Team Kenya, well and good. If they can find a way, they can go ahead and play outside, and it's an assignment coming from Team Kenya. They'll go ahead and even stab anyone else in the back so that they can get that opportunity. So it's very sad, and that's the reason as to why even that reflects even on the court. If you can't trust your players, if you can't trust your teammates, people you're working with like that, how is it that you're going to trust other people from other teams when everyone else is looking out for themselves? So KBF is very spineless, and it all comes down to the desperation that some players have, desperate for these things. And you have to understand, you don't have to, you can't, You don't have to succeed through the national team. You can go other ways. You can live and leave the country and go play elsewhere. You don't have to play for the national team to be successful. That's one thing that many players have. But because a lot of players have that scarcity mentality and they are very shallow and they don't listen, that's the reason as to why they think that way. So Ronnie, so this is Apache replying. It's pure madness. I remember the first time they omitted her. The reason is they were rebuilding with younger players. Yet the team had older players than her. This Kananu issue is just one example of how things are not done right. Man, it's corruption at the end of the day. It's corruption. As a coach, you are presented the half big players and you're expected to return positive results. Has never worked out and cannot. True. Like that's what is happening with the national team right now. You have people who are posing as team managers or coaches and they're handpicked there, and the KBF officials actually pick players for them. They actually handpick players for them and tell them, you know what, go ahead and coach this team. Go ahead and do it. Do it for us. So how do you expect this coach to coach players that he or she does not know? Why is it that the coach does not have the mandate to even be in the selection process and say, hey, look, for this round, I want this player, I want this type of player because it fits into my system. So Coach Cliff clearly has no system. Even Coach Mayenga has no system. Any coach that takes a job to coach the team Lioness, a team that has not been active for 2 years, and thinks that they're going to be successful, is lying to you. And the reason as why this coach is taking this job is because he's desperate, and he doesn't understand that these things will affect your stock as a coach in Africa. And because they're too desperate, they don't even care about the outcomes. Even if he goes there and loses all the games, he'll be like, hey, you know what? I did my best. So as much as you're saying you're doing your best, are you really doing your best? Because if you knew that you don't have enough time, why do you take the job anyway? These guys know that this Lioness team has not been active for 2 years, but they will still take the job anyway. Is it the mere fact of just boarding a plane to a country that you don't know or you have heard of and you just want a free trip? Is that the motivating factor? Maybe some people, they just want to board a plane. That is where it has come down to. Like, they just want to experience how a flight is. Because when they touch down there, they forget basketball. Everything, they forget it. They forget it at... I mean, man, I sometimes I get very irate when I'm talking. So, bear with me. Moving on. They forget that the national team is going to represent the country and not KBF. We need to have our best players out there. I also believe that a coach should have a big hand in national team selection. True. Why is the coach not having a hand in national team selections, as I mentioned earlier? These are things that, it's an iceberg. Is it time for it is time for this bandwagon to fall up and exit basketball for other people who have a mindset of winning? True. I've been calling for these people to change. I've been calling for good leadership, because the thing that is hurting KBF right now is poor leadership. We don't have good leadership, and you're seeing people just abuse the system. You're seeing people who do not respect basketball hold positions of power, and these people do not care about winning, and they only care about fattening their pockets and just getting allowances when they leave. So that's the problem I have, and that's the thing that I'm addressing. So sad that one is denied a chance to represent our nation just because of pride. This is sad from a federation that's supposed to show support. KBF needs to mature, or rather needs to be disbanded. We also want to build the federation around young minds. How wazee tangu nianze kucheza backend wale watu wa 2015, wale watu wa 15 plus years too. So I mean, watu 15 plus years and no change. Okay, fine. The people who are supporting the Kenya Basketball Federation, I know there's a small pocket of people who inadvertently support these people. But the question is, why would you support failure? Why don't you go ahead and support change and have people who actually know what they're supposed to do? Why do you go ahead and support failure?